So welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series called Daily News in Shorts. In this lecture series, we cover a particular day's current affairs in a very short span of time within 30 minutes. Now, the idea behind this lecture series is that you get to cover your current affairs on a daily basis, but you don't have to spend your entire day just reading the newspaper. Therefore, for your facility, we will cover the entire day's current affairs within 30 minutes. Now, just spending 30 minutes watching this lecture would be job half done, because just after watching it, you need to revise it as well, because revision helps in consolidating these current affairs in your memory. Now, you can revise these current affairs from the notes provided by us, and these notes shall be shared on our Telegram channel. The link to our Telegram channel is provided in the comment section just below this video. Alright then, let's begin today's session. But first, let's take a look at the list of topics that we shall cover today. So here's the list. Number 1 on this list is Provisional Estimates of Economic Growth or GDP growth released by Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation recently. So what is this data? What are these estimates? We'll talk about this. Then recently both Mizoram and Goa have announced that they have achieved 100% literacy rates in their respective states. Now this begs the question, how do we define literacy? And what is literacy rate? How is it measured? We'll talk about this. Then the third topic is also related to Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, because MOSPI released two data sets. One was related to provisional estimates and the other was quarter number 4 GDP numbers. Quarter 4 of 2024-25. The GDP numbers of this quarter have been recently released and it has given some optimistic news as far as Indian economy is concerned. So we'll talk about this. And in the end, we'll discuss an editorial which talks about India's shipbuilding sector. Why Atmanirbharta in this sector is extremely critical for us. Okay, so these are the 4 topics that we shall discuss. Let's start talking about them one by one, starting with topic number 1, that is Provisional Estimates of Economic Growth. Now look, financial year as far as economy is concerned starts from 1st April and ends at 31st March of next year, right? That is why we say financial year 2024-25, 2025-26. That's why we use 2 years, okay? Now, the entire financial year is divided into 4 quarters, okay? Quarter number 1 is April to June, okay? Quarter number 2, July to September. Quarter number 3 is October to December. And quarter number 4 is, well, Jan to March. Okay, so the entire year is divided into 4 quarters. Now, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation releases numbers, GDP numbers, for quarters also and annual also, for the entire financial year also. This fact you need to be aware of. Alright. Now the thing is that provisional estimates, the provisional estimates in news, these provisional estimates that we are going to talk about, well, provisional estimates are released for, well, annual GDP growth. So the provisional estimates that we are talking about, well, they are for the annual GDP growth of 2024-25. Now, what was in the news? So, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation released 2 interrelated data sets, okay? First of all, quarter 4 GDP numbers of financial year 24-25 and provisional estimates annual provisional estimates of financial year 24-25, okay? Now, this particular topic will be discussing this. Okay, this will be discussed in third topic. All right. Now, about estimates. Okay, what do we know about estimates? What are these estimates? Because you will hear this term estimates again and again. There is this thing called revised estimates, provisional estimates, budget estimates. All right. So about these estimates, some information about these estimates. Okay. The thing is, let's talk about this thing with an example. Let's suppose we are talking about 2024-25, okay, financial year 2024-25. In January of 25, when the financial year is not even over yet, well, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation basically makes a projection or a prediction that what would be the GDP growth rate for this entire financial year. Now, since the year is not over yet, so this prediction is based on the data of quarter 1 and quarter 2. Okay. Now, this is known as first advance estimates. Why are they called advance estimates? Well, because they are making a prediction based on preliminary data. So, first advance estimates for a given financial year are released in the month of January. Then, second advance estimates are released a month later. Now, why are they called second advance estimates and why are they better? Because apart from quarter 1, quarter 2 numbers, quarter 3 GDP numbers are also released by that time. So, these second advance estimates make a better prediction because the data for 3 quarters is available. Okay. So, this is second advance estimates. Now, once the financial year ends on 31st March 2025, okay, after that, well, data for quarter 4 is also available in the month of April. So, in the month of May, okay, in the month of May, government releases or MOSPI releases first provisional estimates because the data for quarter 4 has been out. So, based on quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, based on the complete picture, provisional estimates are released. Now, this is again provisional estimates, okay, because some data points take a lot of time to come, okay. So, preliminary quarterly data has been made available, but more data is coming out. Therefore, these provisional estimates are revised 2 times, okay. First, revised estimates are released next year 2026 in the month of January or February, okay. And the second revised estimates, which are known as the final estimates, this is the final data. This is released 2 years after the release of provisional estimates, okay, next to next year, that is, right. Now, this information you should be aware of, all right. Now, what are budget estimates? Well, we have discussed that in our economics lecture. So, you need not concern yourself with that. Okay. If you have not covered our economics lectures, well, when you will cover them, you will know what budget estimates are. But this is the thing you need to know about estimates. What are provisional estimates, advance estimates, okay, final estimates, all of this. Now, as far as this data is concerned, okay, this provisional estimates data, what was written in this data? Okay. The thing is, this data contained a little bit of optimistic news or a little bit of pessimistic news. Now, it says that the agricultural sector has grown, but services and industrial sector has fallen short. The future outlook looks uncertain because of the global uncertainty. So, these points were mentioned. Nonetheless, we won't talk about that. What we will talk about is what is mentioned in these provisional estimates or what is mentioned in all these estimates. Okay, revised, provisional, final, whatever. Okay, so these estimates contain data with respect to GDP and GVA. All right. Now, these are known as measures of national income. So, what is GDP, GVA? So, gross domestic product. Okay, gross domestic product is basically calculated by adding all the expenditures made by consumers, investors, government, and well, people who have bought our goods from abroad. Exports minus imports. X stands for exports, M stands for imports. Okay, this is how you estimate GDP. Clear? So, basically you are calculating expenditures made by people. Now, if you calculate the expenditures made by people, you also get to calculate what is the demand in the entire economy by consumers, investors, government and exporters, right? So, GDP basically measures the demand side of the economy. Now, let's contrast that with GVA, okay, gross value added. Now, gross value added and GDP are almost similar. There is some difference, but they are almost similar, okay. Now, gross value added is calculated by basically adding the value added by all the industries in the country, okay. So, all factories in the country, all producers in the country, what is the value added by them? You add all of that and you get gross value added. So this basically looks at the economy from the supply side because these producers are suppliers. Now, what is the difference between GVA and GDP? Well, the difference is taxes, government taxes and subsidies. As you can see by this formula, okay, GDP is equal to GVA plus taxes earned by government minus subsidies provided by government. This formula, I explained this formula in quite detail in our economics lectures, but well, this is the formula that you should be familiar with, okay, because this is current affairs lecture, so I can't delve into a lot of detail. But for those who have covered this already, well, let me remind you that this is the formula, okay. That would be all. So please, this news item is very important because many MCQs can be created out of this. These are important data points. Remember this: GDP demand side, GVA supply side. Remember this part, okay. All right. Now let's move on to topic number 2, and that is literacy rate. Now, why is literacy rate in the news? Okay. So the Honorable Chief Minister of Mizoram, Shri Laludhoma, on Tuesday, 20th May 2025, officially declared that Mizoram is a fully literate state. Okay. With this achievement, Mizoram became the first state in India to become fully literate. Soon after that, within days after that, Chief Minister of Goa also made the same claim. He also made the announcement that Goa has become a fully literate state. Okay. Now, as per the data from 2017, if we talk about all India average, not states, all India average, then India's literacy rate is around 74%. Okay. Now, the question is, and MCQs might be asked from this portion, how do we calculate literacy rate? What is literacy rate? To understand what literacy rate is, basically, you need to know what literacy is. Okay, because if your literacy rate is 74%, that means 74% of your population is literate. But how do we qualify who is literate, who is not? If you pass 10th standard, then you are literate. If you pass 6th standard, then you are literate. If you pass college, PhD, then you are literate. What's the definition of being literate? Okay, so let's talk about that. Definition of literacy. Now, it's very simple, okay? The qualification barrier is very low. In India, a person is called literate if he or she is able to read or write with understanding in any language, not just English, not just Hindi, not just Tamil, Telugu or any of the scheduled languages. In any language, if you can read and write with understanding, you're called literate, okay? Make sense? So the entry barriers or the barriers are quite low. This is the definition of literacy. It is also the global definition. It is also the definition in India. Now, what do we mean by effective literacy rate? So this 74% that we talked about, well, how is it mentioned? Well, 74% of literacy rate means that the entire population above the age of 7, 74% of them are literate. We do not count children below the age of 7, okay? All people above the age of 7, 74% of them are literate, then 74% is your literacy rate. Effective literacy rate, basically, okay? Then there is this thing called adult literacy rate, okay? When we talk about adult literacy rate, the age barrier is not 7, then we say 15 or above, okay? Then there is this another thing called youth literacy rate. In that, we take a look at the percentage of people within this age bracket, 15 to 24. How many percent of the people in this age bracket are literate? This is youth literacy rate. So be aware of these definitions. Now, who in India measures literacy rate? Through surveys. The job is done by Census of India. Surveys are also done by NSO. And there is this thing called National Family Health Survey. In this survey also, education related data is compiled. So literacy rate is also measured by NFHS, NSO and Census of India. Okay. Now, as you can see in this picture, okay, this picture that is being shared on the screen, well, both Mizoram and Goa, just a second, yeah, both Mizoram and Goa credit their achievement to this centrally sponsored scheme called Ullas scheme. Ullas scheme, New India Literacy Program. Now, what is this Ullas scheme which allowed Mizoram and Goa to achieve 100% literacy rate? Okay, so about Ullas scheme. So Ullas, the complete name of the scheme is Nav Bharat Saksharta Karyakram, New India Literacy Program. Okay. Now the full form of Ullas is Understanding Lifelong Learning for All in Society. It is a centrally sponsored scheme, and we have covered in the previous lecture the difference between centrally sponsored scheme and central sector scheme. Okay. The time period for the scheme is 20 to 27. The scheme aligns with the recommendation of, remember this fact, National Education Policy. What is the aim of the scheme? It aims to empower those adults aged 15 years or above from all backgrounds who could not get due schooling and mainstream them with the society to be able to contribute more to the growth story of the country. Look, as far as literacy is concerned, government is focusing a lot. Okay, government is making sure that all children are in schools. But what about those people who are like above the age of 30, 40, who couldn't go to school 10, 20, 30 years back? Well, their literacy is also our responsibility. Only then you will achieve 100% literacy rate. Okay. So, Ullas scheme basically majorly focuses on those people who are out of school but were not literate because of many circumstances. Okay. So, this scheme has 5 components: foundation literacy, read and write in any language; numeracy, basic calculations, addition, subtraction; critical life skills, basic education, vocational skills, continuing education. Even after the age of 40, you can continue your education. Okay. And it is because of this scheme that many states are about to achieve 100% literacy. Alright. That would be all. Now let's shift to another economic statistics related news. Like I said, NSO, which is under Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, released 2 data points. One was related to provisional estimates of financial year 24-25. The other is quarter 4 numbers of financial year 2024-25. Okay. Now these numbers, the quarter 4 numbers have given us some positive news. Now what is that positive news? Nobody expected that in this quarter, India would grow more than 7%. But India did. Indian economy grew at a robust 7.4% in the 4th quarter of 24-25, surpassing most expectations. Okay, though the annual GDP numbers would be 6.5%, but quarter 4 numbers, which everyone expected to be lower than 7%, well, it has been higher than 7.4%. Now, that is the only thing you should focus on as far as these numbers are concerned. But what I want you to remember is that these GDP numbers also give a sectoral breakdown. Okay, they give the GDP numbers of each and every sector, and this you need to be familiar with. Okay, GDP numbers are released for the entire economy as well as different sectors of the economy. Now, our entire economy can be divided into 3 sectors: agriculture, industry, services, and these sectors are divided into further subsectors. You should know the name of these subsectors as well. Okay. Now, as far as the GDP numbers are concerned, they said that agricultural sector grew, there was slowdown in industrial sector, and services sector fell. Okay. So, the only bright spot in our economy was agriculture sector. That's good news. Okay. Because agriculture sector affects rural areas, and majority of India's population resides in rural areas. Nonetheless, what I told you was that, well, these numbers are not that important for you, but it is important for you to remember what are these sectors of the economy and subsectors of the economy. Okay, so let's talk about that. Sectors of the economy. So the entire economy is divided into 3 sectors: agriculture, industry, and services. Now within agriculture, there are 4 subsectors: crop farming sector, animal husbandry subsector, fisheries and aquaculture is another subsector, and forestry and logging. This is another subsector. All these 4 subsectors combine to make agriculture sector. Similarly, industrial sector is divided into following subsectors: manufacturing subsector, construction, mining and quarrying, and electricity and other public utilities. These are the 4 subsectors of industry. Similarly, services sector is also divided into following subsectors: trade, hotels and restaurants 1, transport subsector, storage, communication, financial services, real estate, business, public administration, defense, IT is also there. There are others, etc. Okay. So these are the sectors and these are the subsectors. Remember them because again MCQs might be crafted out of them. Okay. Now these Q4 GDP numbers gave us some positive news, but they also gave us some negative news, at least in the near term. Okay. So what is the near term outlook? What will happen in future? So these numbers say that the private investment remains subdued. Some analysts say that investment activity would remain subdued because of global uncertainty, because of Donald Trump's tariffs. But government has promised to cut taxes and RBI has promised to cut interest rates. Now this would boost demand and that would incentivize private investors to invest in India. And that would also incentivize consumption levels in India. Okay, which is very important because if there is no consumption, there is no incentive for private investors to invest. Okay, so both these things are interrelated. All right. Okay. And now let's move on to the last topic of the day, and that is India's shipbuilding sector. This was basically an editorial in the Indian Express section, but a very important editorial. Now, what did this editorial say? India is taking some very important steps to boost India's shipbuilding sector and to make India's shipbuilding sector Atmanirbhar. And what do we mean by Atmanirbhar? Self-reliant. Okay, we do not want to be import dependent when it comes to shipping sector. Okay, now some of these steps were taken in this year's budget. For example, 25,000 crore Maritime Development Fund, customs duty exemptions for raw materials, infrastructure status for large ships, strategic tie-ups with global shipping giants. Okay, all of this is being done to make India top 5 shipbuilding nations by 2047. The year when we want to become Vikasit also. This is the goal, Vikasit Bharat, developed India. Okay, but this article points out that there are various challenges in front of us. We cannot become top 5 shipbuilding nations by 2047 if we do not address those challenges. The first challenge is, and this is a very important challenge, and this challenge is basically seen in our fighter jets also. Okay, the challenge that we see in our fighter jets, we are saying that we want to build our own fighter jets like Tejas and all, right? The challenge that we see in our fighter jets is also seen in our strategic ships. And what is that challenge? Engines. Okay, we are not self-reliant when it comes to engines. Yes, we do build a lot of high quality ships, but for them we have to import these engines because engine making is a complicated technology. We'll talk about this. But we are highly dependent, import dependent for engines, and this is one chokehold, okay, one roadblock in our status as the top 5 shipbuilding nations of the world. Okay, engines are very important. Marine engines typically account for 15 to 20% of the ship's cost and are central to its performance. Engines are important to the ship's performance, emissions and life cycle. Now listen to this carefully. 90% of the engines rated above 6 megawatt installed on Indian commercial and naval ships are imported from 5 foreign companies. That's it. 90% of the engines that are used in our ships, big ships which require 6 megawatt and more engines, well, they are imported from these 5 companies. Rolls-Royce is one of them, GE is one of them, many others. Okay. Now, this is a big problem because for 90% of your ships, you are dependent on imports. And these imports are only from these 5 companies. You don't have much choice also. This makes India dependent on foreign firms, not just for procurement, okay, but for diagnostics, updates, spare parts, repair, all of this. Plus, the thing is that let's suppose tomorrow USA decides that India is not its friend, India is its enemy. And India is building a naval ship. And that naval ship, the engine for that naval ship comes from an American company. USA can put export controls on that American company so that American company won't be able to transfer this engine so that India can build this naval ship, right? So we can be vulnerable in future. Therefore, it is very important for us to become self-reliant, at least in this engine technology. Okay, and government is taking a lot of steps, but making engines is a very difficult task. And what are the difficulties in front of making India self-reliant in shipping engines? There are three basic problems. Okay, there is the problem of design, because before manufacturing a shipping engine, you have to design it. And majority of the work is in the design phase, because you have to design it so that its performance is high, its emissions are low, it is more durable. Okay, the design part is very difficult, and India currently lacks indigenous design capabilities. We have to hire foreign companies. Even if we are building a shipping engine in India, we have to hire foreign companies to make the design. Okay, then these engines require very, very important materials. Okay, because marine engines operate under extreme thermal and mechanical conditions, high temperatures, high stress. Therefore, you require very sophisticated materials like chromium steels, nickel-based superalloys, thermally stable composites. All of this is required to manufacture these engines after design. But India lacks the capacity to produce such materials in India. Again, we are import dependent. Okay, so we have shortage of materials, plus we have shortage of training, human resources, people. It is impossible to build the next generation marine engines when our top institutes, top engineering institutes, still train students on outdated models of engines. No institute in India is training students on futuristic engines. Okay, that is why our human resources are of substandard quality when it comes to designing marine engines, right? Therefore, what needs to be done? First of all, we need to encourage startups in the designing of marine engines area. Okay, we shouldn't leave this designing part to PSUs, public sector companies. Involve startups. Then secure these materials from overseas mines or mines in India. Then improve the curriculum of your education institutes, okay, to improve human resources, right? This is what is required if India wants to become Atmanirbhar. And a similar thing is required when it comes to jet engines also. If you want to build AMCA, Tejas quickly, you need to be self-reliant in engine technology, right? So this needs to be done. And with that, we conclude today's session. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I'm sure it has added value to your preparation. But like I say this every time, it will add more value if you revise this lecture. So please do not forget to revise this. And on that note, I'll be signing off with the promise of seeing you again with another set of news items. Thank you, everyone.